Alright, buckle up because this is the kind of story I never thought I'd be telling. If you'd asked me a month ago, I'd have told you I had a solid marriage. Nothing perfect but stable. Jennifer and I had been together for 10 years, married for 7. She was smart, ambitious, and to everyone else, the perfect wife. I thought I was the luckiest guy in the world. Turns out, I was just the biggest fool. It all started on what was supposed to be a regular Friday. I had been working on a project out of town for a couple of weeks, but we wrapped up early. Instead of waiting until Sunday to come home like I told Jennifer, I decided to surprise her. I picked up her favorite takeout, excited to see her face light up when I walked in with her favorite sushi. But when I pulled into the driveway, something felt off. Jennifer's car was there, which made sense, but so was another one. A sleek black BMW. I didn't recognize it. My gut told me to turn around, to just leave and act like I never saw it. But something inside me, some instinct I didn't know I had, made me walk toward the house. As I stepped inside, I immediately knew something was wrong. The living room lights were dimmed, and I could hear muffled voices upstairs. Laughter. And then, clear as day, I heard her laugh. That same laugh I had fallen in love with years ago. But it wasn't just her voice, it was a man's voice too. I put the food down on the counter as my hands started shaking. Every logical part of my brain told me I was overreacting. Maybe it was a friend, a coworker, an innocent meeting. But deep down, I knew better. I crept up the stairs, my heart pounding so hard I thought they'd hear me before I even opened the door. But nothing could have prepared me for what I saw when I pushed that bedroom door open. There she was, my wife, completely tangled up not with one man, but 2. And one of them? Her boss. I stood there, frozen. I think I actually laughed for a second because my brain refused to process what I was looking at. It was so absurd, so surreal that for a brief moment, I thought maybe I had walked into the wrong house. Maybe this wasn't real. But then Jennifer turned her head, and the look on her face when she saw me standing there? That was real. I wish I could tell you I screamed, that I flipped the bed over or punched someone. But I didn't. I just stood there, numb, while she scrambled to cover herself, stammering out half-baked excuses. David. This isn't what it looks like. Not what it looks like. Seriously? Her boss, Mr. Corporate Suit and Tie, didn't even look panicked. He just sat there, like he was used to this kind of situation, like it was just business as usual. The other guy, some younger dude I had never seen before, was already reaching for his clothes, looking like he was ready to bolt. I didn't say a word. Not yet. Instead, I did something that would change everything. I pulled out my phone. And I hit record. I don't even know what part of me took over at that moment, but instead of yelling or breaking down, I just lifted my phone and hit record. Jennifer's eyes went wide. She knew. She knew exactly what I was doing, and for the first time, I saw real fear on her face. David, stop. Let's talk about this, she shrieked, scrambling off the bed, holding a sheet against herself like it could somehow cover her sins. Her boss, let's call him Mr. CEO, finally spoke. David, let's be reasonable about this. His voice was calm, way too calm for a man caught with another man's wife. The younger guy? He didn't stick around to see how it played out. He grabbed his pants, practically tripped over himself, and bolted past me like his life depended on it. But I wasn't focused on him. My camera stayed on Jennifer and Mr. CEO. Reasonable. I scoffed, my voice colder than I'd ever heard it. Like how my wife was reasonable when she decided to turn our marriage into some kind of circus. Jennifer reached for my arm, but I stepped back. I could smell the sweat, the perfume, the disgusting mix of everything that screamed betrayal. David, please, it's not what you think, she tried again, voice shaking now. I turned the camera toward her. Really? Because it looks like my wife of 7 years is having a threesome in my bed, while I'm supposed to be out of town. She opened her mouth, but what excuse could possibly fix this? Then, like the snake he was, Mr. CEO put his hands up in a fake show of diplomacy. Listen, David, he said, his voice smooth like he talked his way out of situations like this before. You don't want to do anything rash. Let's all take a breath. We're adults. Maybe we can work something out. I couldn't help it, I laughed. A dark, bitter laugh. Work something out? I echoed. You mean like an NDA? A payout? What's the going rate for silence when you're sleeping with your employee's husband? And then I saw it. The flicker in his eyes. That quick shift of his expression. He had done this before. Maybe not with Jennifer, but with someone. I pocketed my phone and stepped back. I think I have everything I need, I said simply. Jennifer lunged forward. David, please. We can fix this. I turned to her, and for the first time in my life, I felt nothing for her. No love. No sadness. Just a deep, seething coldness. Fix this, I said, tilting my head. You just lost your only chance at fixing anything, Jennifer. Then, without another word, I walked out. And as I stepped into my car, one thought ran through my head. She thought this was the worst moment. She had no idea what was coming next. I drove in silence, no music, no distractions, just the sound of my own breathing and the weight of what I had just witnessed sitting heavy in my chest. I wasn't panicking. I wasn't even furious, not in the way I thought I'd be. I was calculating. Jennifer had spent years lying to me, making a fool out of me right under my nose, thinking she was untouchable. That was her biggest mistake. She thought I would break, that I would be too shocked, too emotional to do anything but beg for an explanation. But I wasn't breaking. I was planning. By the time I pulled up to Chris's house, my mind was already working through the next steps. Chris and I had been best friends since college, but more importantly, he was a damn good lawyer. If anyone knew how to destroy someone legally, it was him. I knocked on his door, and when he opened it, he took one look at me and immediately knew something was wrong. What happened? He asked, his voice sharp. I didn't say a word. Just pulled out my phone, opened the recording, and hit play. I watched as Chris's expression darkened, his jaw tightening with every second. By the time the video ended, he let out a sharp exhale and shook his head. Jesus, David. Yeah, I muttered, still gripping my phone. Chris rubbed his forehead, already shifting into attorney mode. How long do you think this has been going on? I sank onto his couch, the exhaustion of the night starting to hit me. No idea. But I'm going to find out. And then, as if the universe had been waiting for me to say those words, my phone buzzed. An email. From Jennifer. David, please come home. We need to talk. I know this looks bad, but I swear I can explain. I love you. Please don't make any rash decisions. Chris snorted. Rash decisions? Like, I don't know, having a damn threesome in your own marital bed while your husband is supposed to be out of town. I barely had time to react before another email popped up. This one wasn't from Jennifer. It was from an unknown sender. David, I don't know you, but you need to see this. Check the attachments. I clicked it open, and the moment I saw what was inside, my stomach dropped. Hundreds of screenshots. Emails. Chats. Photos. Years of deception laid out in black and white. Jennifer hadn't just been sleeping with her boss. She had been running a long con. Conversations between her and her friends mocking me, calling me too stupid to ever figure it out. Emails where she admitted she was only staying with me for financial security. Proof of secret trips, hotel receipts, and plans to divorce me once she drained me for everything she could. I felt nothing as I scrolled through it, just a strange kind of clarity. Chris let out a low whistle beside me, shaking his head in disbelief. David, you just hit the jackpot. I looked up at him, my voice eerily calm. She thinks she's going to take everything from me. Chris grinned, a sharp, wolfish grin. She has no idea what's coming. And just like that, the real revenge began. I didn't sleep that night. I couldn't. Every time I closed my eyes, all I saw was Jennifer's face, that wide-eyed panic when she realized I had caught her. The sound of her voice, scrambling for excuses. The smug, too calm look on her boss's face, like he had handled situations like this before. Like he thought he could just make it go away. Not this time. By morning, I had a plan. Chris and I sat in his kitchen, drinking black coffee, phones in hand, going over every piece of evidence. The emails, the texts, the receipts, there was so much. Too much for this to be some spur-of-the-moment cheating. Jennifer had been playing me for years. Chris leaned back in his chair, arms crossed. We can handle this two ways. Slow and methodical, or fast and brutal. I looked up at him. What gets me the most leverage? Slow and methodical, he said without hesitation. We need to gather everything. Bank statements, hidden accounts, anything she's been siphoning. If she's planning to take you to court for half, we're going to make sure she walks away with nothing instead. I nodded. And her boss? Chris smirked. That's where it gets fun. Because here was the thing, Mr. CEO wasn't just some random guy. He was married. With kids. And from what we could tell, he had a reputation for this kind of thing. But Jennifer? She was stupid enough to leave a paper trail. Emails to him where she gloated about using me for my money, about how she loved the thrill of sneaking around, how she thought she was too smart to get caught. The best part? Some of these emails were sent from her work account. That was all we needed. Chris picked up his phone and dialed a number. I know a guy at their corporate office. If we play this right, Jennifer's about to lose more than just her marriage. She's about to lose everything. I exhaled slowly. This was happening. This was real. And as much as I hated to admit it, I was enjoying this. Jennifer wanted to play games? Fine. Let's see how she likes it when she realizes she's been outplayed. Chris and I spent the next 2 days digging. I took a sick day from work, not that I could focus anyway, and went back home while Jennifer was at her office, careful not to tip her off. I went through our shared financial records, checking every credit card, every bank statement. And just as I suspected, she had been draining me. There were transactions I never noticed before, hotel stays, expensive dinners, gifts. But the worst part? Money transfers. Regular payments to an unknown account. I took a deep breath, trying to keep my hand steady. This wasn't just cheating. This was premeditated. She wasn't just screwing other men, she was stealing from me. I sent everything to Chris, and within an hour, he called back. David, he said, his voice tight. I just ran those account details through some contacts. The name on the receiving end. He paused. It's her boss. She's been funneling money to him. I sat down hard. My own wife was bankrolling her affair. Chris continued, his voice sharpening. This is better than we could have hoped for. We don't just have infidelity. We have financial misconduct. If we play this right, she won't just lose in divorce court, she could get hit with fraud charges. I exhaled slowly. Let's move forward. Good, Chris said. Because I just had a very interesting conversation with someone in her company's legal department. Turns out, Mr. CEO wasn't as untouchable as he thought. His company had strict ethics policies, and if an employee was caught having an affair with a superior, both parties could face termination, especially if there was evidence of financial misconduct. And thanks to Jennifer's stupidity, we had a goldmine of evidence. That evening, while Jennifer was still at work, I did something I never thought I'd do. I emailed her boss's wife. I kept it simple. No emotional rants, no accusations. Just a few choice screenshots. Enough to show her exactly what was going on. Within 10 minutes, I got a reply. I knew he was hiding something. Thank you. This isn't the first time. Let's talk. And just like that, the first domino fell. The next morning, everything started to unravel. By the next morning, I barely had to lift a finger. Everything was already in motion. Chris had sent the financial evidence to our divorce attorney, who was ecstatic. This is airtight, he told me over the phone. She won't get a cent from you. In fact, you might be able to sue her for fraud. Meanwhile, the CEO's wife, let's call her Linda, wasn't wasting time either. She and I spoke on the phone briefly, and she was furious. Apparently, she had suspicions for years but never had concrete proof. Now she had enough to bury him. And she wasn't just going for divorce. She was going for blood. By noon, Jennifer's office turned into a war zone. Linda stormed in, emails printed in hand, demanding answers. Employees were talking, rumors were spreading, and Mr. CEO? He was cornered. Then, just as planned, an anonymous email was sent to the company's HR and legal department. Attached? Screenshots of Jennifer's very incriminating work emails to her boss. Within an hour, Mr. CEO was called into an emergency meeting. And Jennifer? Well, she wasn't far behind. By the time she got home that evening, I was waiting. Not to argue. Not to fight. Just to watch her squirm. She walked in, looking like she had just survived a hurricane. Her makeup was smeared, her eyes were puffy, and for the first time ever, she looked genuinely afraid. She opened her mouth, but I cut her off. "Rough day?" I asked, my voice cold. Her hands trembled as she set her purse down. "David, please. We need to talk." I leaned back in my chair. "Oh, I know. But first, let me guess, your boss is in deep trouble. HR is involved. His wife found out. People at work are talking. And now you're realizing you're about to lose everything." Her lip quivered. I slid a thick manila envelope across the table. "That's your copy of the divorce papers. Chris already filed them. You might want to get a lawyer." "Oh wait, you can't afford one." Tears welled up in her eyes. "David, please, I never meant for it to." I stood up. "Don't." My voice was sharp, final. "You lied to me. For years. You drained my accounts to support your little affair. You mocked me behind my back. And now." I tilted my head, watching as she crumbled. "Now you get to see what it feels like to be blindsided." Her knees buckled, and she sank into a chair, sobbing. "I lost my job," she whispered. "They fired me." I smirked. "Good. You deserve it." She shook her head frantically, like she still had some fantasy of fixing this. "But you still love me, right?" she asked, voice trembling. "We can work through this." I let out a short, cold laugh. "Jennifer, I don't even know you anymore." She sobbed harder, clutching her head. "I have nowhere to go." I shrugged. "Not my problem." Because this time, I was walking away. Jennifer sat there, gripping the divorce papers like they could somehow save her. She looked up at me, eyes filled with desperation, as if crying hard enough would make me forget everything she had done. But I felt nothing. "David, please," she whispered. "I know I messed up, but don't throw everything away. We can fix this." I shook my head, almost impressed by how deep her delusion ran. Fix this? There was nothing left to fix. She had torched everything and danced in the ashes. "Jennifer, I'm not throwing anything away. You did that." I gestured to the divorce papers. This is just making it official." She clenched her jaw, her hands balling into fists. The sadness disappeared, replaced by anger. She wasn't sad because she lost me, she was angry because she lost control. "So that's it," she snapped. "You're just done? After everything we've been through?" I let out a breath, shaking my head. "After everything we've been through? Jennifer, do you even hear yourself? Everything we went through." I scoffed. "You mean everything you put me through while laughing about it with your boss?" She flinched. I cut her off. "No. No more excuses. No more fake tears. You made your bed, literally. Now you get to lie in it." Her breathing picked up. The panic was back. "But, what am I supposed to do? Where am I supposed to go?" "Not my problem. Not anymore." "That's not my concern," I said flatly. "But you should probably figure it out soon. Because I've already had the locks changed." Her mouth fell open. "You what?" "You heard me." I grabbed my phone and scrolled through my emails before turning the screen toward her. "Officially filed for divorce. Effective immediately. You'll be served soon, but I figured I'd give you a heads up." She went pale. "David, you can't just kick me out. I live here too." "No you don't." I leaned in slightly. "You forfeited that when you drained our accounts and sent money to your boss. Legally? This house is in my name. And since I already filed, you have no claim to it." Her face twisted in shock. I could see the wheels turning in her head, grasping for some kind of loophole, some way to weasel out of this. But there wasn't one. "This isn't fair," she muttered, her voice shaking. "You're punishing me because you betrayed me for years?" I finished for her. "Yeah, I am." She shot up from her chair, her face red with frustration. "You think you're so smart, don't you? You think you won." I tilted my head, considering her words. Then I smirked. "I don't think I won. I know I did." And with that, I walked past her, leaving her standing there, broken and defeated. For the first time in years, I felt free. Jennifer didn't leave that night. She sat in the living room for hours, her head in her hands, whispering things to herself like she was trying to piece together what went wrong. But I knew exactly what she was doing, stalling. She thought if she stayed long enough, maybe I'd cool down. Maybe I'd crack. Maybe I'd take pity on her. She was wrong. By midnight, I had enough. I stood in the doorway, arms crossed. "You need to go." She looked up, eyes red, lips trembling. "David, please, just give me a few days to figure things out." I shook my head. "Not happening." Her face twisted in desperation. "I have nowhere to go." I shrugged. "Not my problem." And that's when the mask finally slipped. Her sadness? Gone. The guilt? Fake. All that was left was pure, bitter rage. "You're such a damn coward," she hissed, standing up so fast the chair nearly toppled over. "You think you're the victim? You're pathetic. You couldn't satisfy me, David. That's why I had to find someone who could." I stared at her for a long moment. Then, I smiled. A slow, cruel smile. "Good," I said. She blinked, thrown off. "What?" I stepped closer, looking her dead in the eyes. "I wanted to make sure you really meant all that, Jennifer. I wanted to see the real you, not the fake sob story you've been feeding me." I reached into my pocket and pulled out my phone, flipping the screen toward her. Recording saved. Her face drained of color. I started recording the second you opened your mouth," I said, smirking. "You just admitted to everything. And now? Now I have it on tape." She stumbled backward, her breath hitching. You can't use that in court." I shrugged. "Maybe. Maybe not. But you know where I can use it." I tilted my head. "Your job interviews. Your family. Your friends. Every single person who's ever believed your innocent victim act." She opened her mouth, then closed it, her entire body shaking. She knew she was finished. I gestured toward the door. "Leave." And for the first time all night, she didn't argue. She just grabbed her purse with trembling hands and walked toward the door. She hesitated for a second, like she wanted to say something. But when she looked at me and saw the absolute emptiness in my expression, she knew. She had lost. The door closed behind her. And just like that, Jennifer was gone. Jennifer was out of my house, but her downfall? That was only just beginning. The next morning, I woke up feeling something I hadn't felt in years: relief. No more waking up next to a liar. No more unknowingly funding her secret double life. The weight that had been sitting on my chest for years, that gut feeling I ignored for so long, was finally gone. I took my time getting out of bed, stretching like a man who had finally escaped prison. I brewed my coffee, took my first sip, and actually smiled. It was the first sip of coffee in my house, by myself, without the shadow of Jennifer's lies poisoning the air. And then my phone rang. Chris. I picked up, and the moment he spoke, I could hear the grin in his voice. "You're gonna love this." I leaned back, smirking. "Hit me." He let out a low chuckle. "Linda filed for divorce first thing this morning. And she's not just leaving him, she's taking him to the cleaners." I raised an eyebrow. "How bad?" "Oh, she's out for blood. She's got her own lawyers, and she's aiming to get full custody, the house, and a fat chunk of his assets. She even hired a private investigator to dig deeper into his affairs. Apparently, Jennifer wasn't the first." I let out a slow breath, savoring the news. Jennifer really thought she was special? That she was different from the others? Please. She was just another disposable toy to that man. And now? She was paying for it. Chris continued, clearly enjoying himself. "And it gets better. Mr. CEO got called into an emergency meeting at corporate today. He's out. Fired. No severance." I nearly choked on my coffee. "Already?" "Yup. Apparently, corporate doesn't want to be anywhere near this scandal. The moment HR got those emails, they started looking into his past. Turns out, there were rumors about him for years. Jennifer just gave them the perfect excuse to kick him out." I shook my head, laughing. "So let me get this straight. In less than 2 days, he lost his job, his wife, his kids, and soon, his money." "Yup," Chris said, amused. "And Jennifer? She's next." I set my mug down, already knowing what he was going to say. "They fired her, didn't they?" "Oh, it was brutal," Chris said, barely holding back his laughter. "HR had a sit-down meeting with her this morning. Terminated for misuse of company resources. Turns out, using work emails to brag about your affair and send money to your married boss is a major policy violation. I whistled. Damn. She tried to fight it, Chris continued. Cried, begged, threatened to sue, but the company wasn't having it. They handed her a termination letter and escorted her out of the building. I let that sink in. Jennifer lost her job. The financial security she stayed with me for? Gone. The affair partner she thought was her big shot at something better? Gone. The life she built on lies? Burning to the ground. And then, as if the universe had perfect comedic timing, my phone buzzed. A message from Jennifer. I stared at her name for a second, then opened it. David, please. I need to talk to you. I have nowhere else to go. Just hear me out. I exhaled slowly, letting the weight of it settle. I pictured her, sitting in some motel room or maybe in her car, jobless, alone, with nowhere to turn. No more high-paying corporate job. No more Mr. CEO protecting her. No more comfortable home that I paid for. She had nothing. And yet, even now, she still thought she could pull me back in. I took my time, typing out a response. Not my problem. Then, without another word, I blocked her. I stared at the screen for a moment, letting it sink in. It was over. The woman who had betrayed me, stolen from me, and mocked me behind my back was finally getting exactly what she deserved. And for the first time in a long, long time, I was free. The moment I blocked Jennifer's number, something in me shifted. It wasn't just relief, it was finality. There was no going back. No chance for her to weasel her way into my life again. She had made her choices, and now? She was living with the consequences. Chris and I met up later that evening to go over the next steps for the divorce. Even though Jennifer had already lost everything, I wanted to make sure there were no loose ends. Chris leaned back in his chair, sipping his beer. You know, most guys in your position would be a wreck right now. I shrugged. Guess I don't have time to be. He smirked. Nah, it's because you already went through all the grieving while she was still lying to you. You're just done. I nodded, knowing he was right. Jennifer had been dead to me from the moment I caught her. Everything after that? It was just cleanup. Still, I couldn't help but wonder where she was now. Was she still trying to salvage the wreckage of her life? Was she crashing at a friend's place? Sleeping in her car? I should have felt bad, but I didn't. Not after everything she put me through. And then, as if on cue, Chris's phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen, then looked at me, shaking his head in disbelief. Well, you won't believe this, he muttered. I raised an eyebrow. What now? He turned the screen toward me. An email. From Jennifer. I exhaled, already knowing this was going to be pathetic. Chris, please. I need to talk to David. I know he blocked me, but can you just tell him to call me? Just for a few minutes? I don't want anything from him. I need to explain. Please. Chris laughed. She's desperate. I took a sip of my drink, unfazed. Let her be. He smirked. Not even a little curious. Nope. And I wasn't. There was nothing Jennifer could say that would change the facts. No excuse, no sob story, nothing that would erase years of betrayal. She wanted closure? Tough. She didn't get to ask for that after what she did. Chris deleted the email without responding. And just like that, Jennifer's last lifeline to me was severed. I left the bar that night feeling lighter than I had in years. I wasn't just free of her, I was finally living for myself again. And I had a feeling that the best was yet to come. After Chris deleted Jennifer's email, we didn't talk about her for the rest of the night. I didn't want to. She was nothing more than a bad memory now, a lesson learned the hard way. I was done letting her take up space in my head. But Jennifer? She wasn't done. The next morning, I woke up to a text from an unknown number. I already knew who it was before I even opened it. David, please don't ignore me. I just need to talk. Just once. I swear I won't ask for anything, I need you to hear me out. I stared at the message for a long moment. Not because I was considering answering, I wasn't. But because it was pathetic. This was the same woman who mocked me behind my back. The same woman who funneled my money into her affair. The same woman who acted so smug, so untouchable. Now? Now she was begging. I didn't reply. I blocked the number instead. An hour later, I got an email. David, I'm sorry for texting. I just don't know what else to do. I know I don't deserve your time, but I need you to know the truth. Please, just hear me out. There it was again, that same manipulative tone. Not, I'm sorry for what I did. Not, I regret everything. Just, I need you to listen to me. I wasn't playing that game. Delete. Block. Done. But Jennifer? She still had one last trick up her sleeve. That afternoon, I was at the gym when I saw something that made me stop mid-set. Through the front glass windows, standing on the sidewalk like a damn ghost, was Jennifer. I took a deep breath, trying to ignore her, but she didn't move. She just stood there waiting. Chris had warned me this might happen. She's desperate, he had said. When people lose control, they spiral. And when they spiral, they do stupid things. Jennifer had lost everything, and now? Now she was hunting for scraps. I finished my set, grabbed my bag, and walked out the doors without giving her a second glance. She called after me, her voice shaky. David. Please just wait. I didn't stop. David, I know I screwed up. But please just let me explain. I turned around then, only because I wanted to see her face when I said this. There's nothing to explain, I said calmly. You lost. Move on. Her eyes filled with tears. I shook my head. No. We're done. And with that, I walked away, without looking back. That was the moment Jennifer finally understood. There was no saving her reputation, no reversing what she had done. She had destroyed everything. And now? She was completely alone. And I had never felt more free. After I walked away from Jennifer outside the gym, I expected that to be the end of it. That she'd finally get the message and disappear from my life for good. But people like Jennifer? They don't know when to quit. For the next 2 days, she kept trying. New numbers. Fake email accounts. Even messaging mutual friends to try and get through to me. I ignored it all. Then, on the 3rd day, she snapped. I had just gotten home from work when I saw her. She was waiting on my porch, arms crossed, face twisted in frustration. I sighed, already exhausted. Jennifer. Leave. She shook her head, stepping closer. No. You don't get to just shut me out like this. I let out a short, cold laugh. I don't? Funny, because that's exactly what I'm doing. Her jaw clenched. You're being so heartless about this. I tilted my head. You mean the way you were heartless when you drained my bank account for your affair partner? The way you were heartless when you laughed at me with your friends, calling me too dumb to ever figure it out? Her face flushed. No, I cut her off, stepping forward. You don't get to play the victim, Jennifer. Not after what you did. Her hands balled into fists. I made a mistake. I smirked. No. A mistake is forgetting an anniversary. You ran a whole scam. That hit her. I saw it in the way her breath hitched, the way her shoulders tensed. The guilt flashed across her face, but only for a second, then it was gone, replaced by rage. You think you're so much better than me, don't you? She spat. You think you won? I exhaled slowly, nodding. Yeah, Jennifer. I did. She glared at me, breathing hard. You're going to regret this. I raised an eyebrow. Regret what? Cutting a cheater out of my life? Moving on while you lose everything? Yeah, that sounds awful. She trembled, fists clenching at her sides, and for a second, I thought she was going to slap me. But instead, she just let out a bitter, shaking breath and took a step back. I loved you, she whispered. I really did. I gave her a look that was nothing but pity. You don't destroy the people you love, Jennifer. She didn't say another word. Just turned on her heel and stormed off. I watched her walk down the driveway, her shoulders stiff, her steps angry. She didn't look back, not once. And that was the real end. No more texts. No more emails. No more waiting on my porch. She finally understood. I was done with her. For good. And for the first time since this all started, I felt free. Jennifer was finally gone. No more desperate messages. No more fake apologies. No more showing up like a stray dog, hoping I'd crack. She knew she had lost. And me? For the first time in years, I was living my life without a weight on my chest. At first, it felt strange. I had spent so long thinking I had a stable marriage, that Jennifer was my partner, that we were a team. Now, looking back, I realized I had been living in a fantasy. The truth had been right in front of me the whole time, but I had been too blind, or maybe too trusting, to see it. So, I did what I should have done a long time ago. I moved forward. The divorce process was still happening, but with all the evidence against her, she didn't stand a chance. Chris made sure of that. Every attempt she made to fight for anything, money, assets, even a piece of the house, got shut down immediately. She had nothing. No job. No security. No rich and powerful affair partner to fall back on. I heard through mutual acquaintances that she was struggling. She had been staying with a distant cousin, but it wasn't going well. Apparently, she had expected sympathy, expected people to take her side, comfort her, tell her she had just made a mistake. But the truth was out. Everyone knew what she had done. People were disgusted. Some of her former friends cut her off completely. Others only kept her around because they liked watching the drama unfold. Even her own family wasn't fully on her side. Her parents had been humiliated by the scandal, and her siblings didn't want to be involved. I should have felt bad. Maybe even a little guilty. But I didn't. Because the way I saw it, she did this to herself. Meanwhile, I was doing better than ever. I started focusing on myself, hitting the gym more, reconnecting with old friends, actually enjoying life again. Chris and I started going out more, hitting up bars, just having fun. For the first time in a long time, I felt like me again. Then, a few weeks later, something happened that made it even better. I ran into Mr. CEO's wife, Linda. It was completely random. I was grabbing coffee at this little spot downtown when I saw her sitting at a table, scrolling through her phone. She looked up, saw me, and for a moment, I wasn't sure if she was going to ignore me or say something. Then, she waved me over. I walked up, unsure of what to expect. "Hey, Linda." She gave me a small, knowing smile. "David. Have a seat." I sat down, and for a few seconds, there was just this unspoken understanding between us. We had both been played. We had both been used by people we trusted. And now? We were both free. "I heard Jennifer's not doing too well," she said, stirring her coffee. I smirked. "That makes two of them." She chuckled. "Yeah. My ex-husband is a mess. His lawyer is trying to cut a deal, but I'm not letting him off easy. He thought he could cheat, lie, and walk away without consequences." She took a slow sip of her drink. "I made sure that didn't happen." I nodded, impressed. "Good." She tilted her head, studying me. "And you? How are you holding up?" I thought about it for a second. The old me, the one who found out about Jennifer's affair, who stood there stunned and heartbroken as my entire world collapsed, would have said something like, "It still hurts, but I'm getting through it." But now? Now I just smiled. "Honestly? I'm better than ever." Linda's lips curled into a knowing smirk. "Good answer." And just like that, I knew. I had won. Jennifer had tried to break me. Instead, she set me free. Weeks passed, and life just kept getting better. Then, one night at a bar with Chris, I felt a familiar gaze on me. I turned my head and, there she was. Jennifer. She looked rough, tired, uncertain, a shadow of the woman who once thought she was untouchable. But she wasn't alone. Across from her sat a man, her date, probably. Chris noticed too. "Think she's trying to make you jealous?" I smirked. "If she is, she's failing." Then, in a twist of perfect karma, her date suddenly got up and left. Not to the bathroom. Not for a coal. He left the bar. Completely. Jennifer sat there, staring at the empty seat, gripping her wine glass too tight. Then, as if she could feel my amusement, she met my eyes. And she walked straight toward me. Chris groaned. "Oh, here we go." She hesitated, then spoke. "David, can we talk?" I nodded, curious. "Go ahead." She sat, exhaled shakily. I wanted to say I'm sorry. I tilted my head. "For what, exactly?" She swallowed hard. "For everything. I thought I had it all figured out, but I was just stupid. I didn't say anything. I lost everything, she admitted. And I regret it. All of it. I let the silence stretch before giving her the only answer she deserved. Good. She searched my face, waiting for something, anything. But there was nothing. Just indifference. I stood up, grabbing my drink. Take care, Jennifer. And just like that, I walked away. Because she was nothing to me now. Walking away from Jennifer that night, I knew this was it. The final chapter. The last time she would ever hold space in my life. I didn't feel angry. I didn't feel sad. I just felt done. For weeks, she had tried to claw her way back, throwing out apologies, excuses, and desperate attempts to rewrite the past. But the truth? She wasn't sorry for what she did. She was sorry for losing. And me? I didn't need her apologies. I didn't need explanations. Because for the first time in a long time, I didn't need anything from her at all. A week later, the divorce was finalized. Jennifer got nothing. No money. No house. No second chance. Just a cold, hard reminder that the life she had built on lies and betrayal was gone. I knew from mutual acquaintances that she was still struggling. That she had burned so many bridges, she had nowhere stable to land. People who used to be her friends wanted nothing to do with her. Even her family was keeping her at arm's length, embarrassed by the mess she had made. And the best part? It wasn't my problem. That Friday, Chris and I met up for drinks like we always did, but this time, it felt different. This wasn't just any Friday. This was the first Friday where I was officially, legally, completely free. Chris smirked as he lifted his glass. To freedom. I clinked mine against his. To better things. And I meant it. Because for the first time in years, my life was my own again. No more walking on eggshells. No more feeling like something was wrong but not knowing what. No more being played by someone who thought she was smarter than me. Jennifer had been a bad chapter in my story. A painful lesson I had to learn. But that chapter was over. And I had the rest of my life ahead of me. I sat there, drink in hand, laughing with my best friend, realizing that I didn't just survive this. I won. And while Jennifer was stuck in the past, regretting everything she had lost, I was already in the future. A future that was mine. A future that was brighter than anything I had before. And for the first time in a long, long time, I was happy.